From WLWT, this is Issues.
Hello, everyone. I'm Courtis Fuller, and welcome to Issues. Trial number 2, a request for a change of venue in the Ray Tenzing murder trial. The defense says it's not surprised by Joe Dieter's decision, but may not agree to moving the trial out of Hamilton County. Tomorrow, both sides are set to be back in court before Judge Megan Shanahan. Here's more now from WLWT News 5's Karin Johnson.
We've determined that there is, in fact, a probability of success at another trial, and we will be doing that.
After talking to half of the jurors and reviewing transcripts, Joe Dieter says he believes he can get a conviction.
Not surprised a bit. Totally expected it. Would have fallen off of my chair here if he had said anything different.
The charges against Ray Tenzing will be the same, murder and voluntary manslaughter. But Dieters is seeking a change of venue.
It is our belief that the public attention that's been focused on the Tenzing case could have, in fact, seeped into the jury room.
Dieter says given what happened at the first trial, it will be difficult to find an impartial jury if the retrial is held in Hamilton County.
The jurors wouldn't even come out of the jury room. We had a revolt going on in the jury room at one point because they were afraid that their names would be known. We moved to another jurisdiction. I don't know the jurors will care.
At this point, I'm not going to commit whether we want to change a venue or not, but I am leaning toward saying I'd rather keep it here in Hamilton County since we successfully picked a jury last time.
As for whether Tenzing could avoid a second trial altogether and take a plea,
we haven't ever talked about one. I'm sure Joe Dieters would entertain a request by us to plead guilty as charged, which ain't going to happen.
Now, ultimately, it will be up to Judge Megan Shanahan to decide whether to grant Dieter's request to move this trial, and of course, if she does grant that request, where to move it. You know, saying the first trial left them in limbo, those closest to Sam DuBose are pleased to know Tenzing will be retried. WLWT News 5's Todd Dykes talked to DuBose's sisters and about the possibility of moving the case out of Hamilton County.
I can't even think about anything. This is all consuming, really. It's all consuming.
Tarina DuBose Allen says she and Sam DuBose's other siblings are glad Ray Tenzing will face another trial in connection with their brother's death.
All I can think about is what was done wrong to Sam, what the implications are for African Americans if there's no justice, for African American men, and for people in general. So it just keeps this ever present.
DuBose Allen and her sister Cleishon DuBose say they'll support prosecutor Joe Dieters when he asked Judge Megan Shanahan that the second trial be moved to another city in Ohio, but they'd prefer to stay close to home.
If we were calling it, it would stay local, but I think that we have to look at it from Dieters bringing his expertise and professionalism. He's probably thinking about something we're not, and if he knows that that's what he needs to do to get the jury that he needs to get justice, which we deem to be a conviction, then we're going to go with it.
DuBose family attorney Al Gerhardstein also weighed in on a possible change of venue.
As long as the place where the trial ends up is similar to Cincinnati, so that the black population, the jury pool, the demographics fit the same as what we have here, it may be better to move it.
Wherever the trial takes place, these women long for a day when their brother's death doesn't dominate every family gathering.
Every time we're together, it's like we all go back to this conversation. It is, we have to get this done.
Now, Joe Dieters said near the end of the jury's 25 hours of deliberations, jurors voted 10-2 in favor of convicting Ray Tenzing on the charge of voluntary manslaughter. A few hours later, the jury was deadlocked. Both of Sam DuBose's sisters say a guilty verdict on the voluntary manslaughter charge would have been acceptable because that would have meant the case was finally over. Meanwhile, the Fraternal Order of Police of Ohio released a statement saying, in part, as a fellow police officer, I'm concerned about the dangerous precedent that this case could have on other officers who might hesitate in a moment when decision-making is literally life or death. This is especially meaningful at a time when police are being targeted and assassinated at a shocking rate. We're disappointed that Officer Tenzing will be subjected to a second trial, but what's most important now is for him to get a fair hearing. I want you to stay with WLWT with all the new developments in the Ray Tenzing case. We will be back in a moment. Welcome back, everyone. I'm Courtis Fuller. Another issue that we're going to talk about is really talk about various issues, some economics and an important topic, hepatitis, and how that relates to some things happening here and really globally. Let me bring in my guests, two people. Zola Stewart, who is with the Center of Economic Transparency, and also another person here with us, Okyeame, Kwame, who is a singer, entertainer from Ghana. First of all, welcome to the program.
Thank you.
Zola, I said, why don't we have you explain what the Center for Economic Transparency is, so if people haven't heard of it.
Yes. The Center for Economic Transparency is a nonprofit organization that I founded, and its intent is to bring transparency to public dollars and the impact that it has in the community so that we can learn, share best practices globally, and then improve our communities.
And explain how that ties into Okyeame being here in Cincinnati.
Well, I was fortunate enough to be invited in by Regina Hutchins with the Black Nurses Association as they work globally on health issues. They connected with Kwame, who's a global star and philanthropist. He is, I like to say, the Jay-Z of Ghana. You know, he's amazing.
Well, you have to live up to that now.
Oh, he has. Yeah. He's pretty amazing. But he has a nonprofit in Ghana that he has been on his own going out and trying to eradicate Hep B there. Yes. And he'll explain a little bit more, but his mission now is to go from vaccinating 1,000 a year to 10,000. And so that's a major mission. And so he's reaching out globally to bring in some partners, and he connected with the Black Nurses Association. And we then in turn helped him with pulling together a free benefit concert. And outside of that concert, just the relationship and the information that has been shared opens up doors for so many more opportunities for us to connect with, Africa.
Thank you for setting that up, because it's important. And Cincinnati, Hamilton County we have our own challenges with hepatitis here and HIV. And so the Jay-Z, that's high praise, huh? Tell me why you got so involved in this issue. I know it's a serious issue.
Yes, it is. About 7 years ago, I realized that the whole concept of sense of feel, sense of touch, sense of taste is just one sense, which is touch, because you can't feel unless you are touched. You can't hear unless something touches your eardrum. You can't taste unless something touches your tongue. So the whole concept and philosophy of life is about touching people. So, but I had been a musician for about 11 years, a successful musician, but still I wasn't fulfilled. So I realized that in Ghana, if you take every 6 people, 1 of them is exposed to the hepatitis virus. And though there's a potent vaccine, 500,000 people in Africa die of hepatitis and hepatitis-related cancer every year. So it was very alarming. So I decided to form an NGO with 2 doctors or friends of mine to give free screening, free vaccination, do advocacy, upscale, advocacy, downscale, go down to the roots, go to the people, and make sure that hepatitis has the same prominence, or make hepatitis a superstar, so that it will have its own billboards, its own radio commercials, television commercials, so that the people will hear of it. So basically, it was because I felt as an artist, it was time for me to touch people.
How effective have you been? I know this isn't going to happen overnight, but...
Okay, so when we started fighting hepatitis, the prevalence rate was 15%. Still, it is 15%, but at least now a lot more people know about it. And I believe that no wonder we keep fighting and trying to eradicate it and bring the agencies together and find partners and keep shouting. More people are also testing, more people have become aware. So very soon, maybe in the next 2 years, the statistics will come down. Apart from looking at it from the concept of numbers, what we do is we set up clinics in deprived areas and market circles and places that hitherto our movement or our actions, people would not hear of hepatitis. So we get a doctor to talk to the people in the local language about how to get the disease, how to get away, how it affects you economically, you know, in the local language. And then when we are done, we do something that, we do a post-test counseling. So after they allow us to take their blood sample and investigate it, there's an actual clinical psychologist to tell you are positive because of perceptions and all these things. So we have done more than 20 clinics around Ghana and affected 7,000 people. And let's say these 7,000 people come from families of 5 or 6, or in Africa, 10. You know, so 7,000 times 10, plus all the advocacy that we do, we believe that we are going somewhere. And because of that, today I sit in Cincinnati, billions of miles away from where I come from, to talk about hepatitis.
I would imagine, like all of us, when you don't know something and then you find out about it, you're amazed at the number and how you didn't. Was that the case with you when you started to look at these numbers and you said, I didn't realize the problem was that great?
Yes, that's one, but I was asked to go and test for hepatitis, you know, because I was falling sick frequently. And then when I did the test, I saw that the hepatitis test alone was $40, which was a bit much. So I'm saying, okay, I'm an artist, I'm playing shows every weekend, I'm on tour, but $40 is still much, because in Ghana, $1 is equal to 4 cedis, which means it will be 40 times 4. You know, so it was a bit much, and the regular Joe would find it difficult to get testing for hepatitis. So it was the expensive cost of hepatitis. That's why we decided to do it free. And also the alarming statistics brought together. That's why we set up the NGO to administer it for free.
Wow. Black Nurses Association, you're partnering with them here, yes, here in Cincinnati. Yes. And I know just the dollars and cents, and that's where, when we talk about the economics of this, just the dollars and cents, and I think it's important that people understand that, you know, it's one thing to raise awareness, but if people can't afford it, then you're stuck. So we're going to take a break and then come back and talk a little bit more about this. Plus, I want to talk more about your music. We'll lighten things up a little bit.
All right.
All right. We'll be back in a moment. Welcome back, everyone. I'm Courtis Fuller here with Zola Stewart and Okyeame Kwame. Zola, you mentioned something during the break, and you mentioned how this had stabilized at 15%. Some may hear that as, oh, okay, you haven't had success. It's leveling off. But on the contrary, as you pointed out,
right,
imagine where this would have been or could have been with respect to hepatitis.
Right.
Had you not stabilized. That's the point you were making.
Exactly. So for the past 7 years, he's been affecting change in his community. And had he not got the vaccinations for over 7,000 people, that would have quite easily quadrupled. So where would they be now? So the education piece, this is huge and major, and I'm just very proud to have a young, such a young man, making an impact now in his career. The other thing I was really impressed with, and I've learned a lot. So also being an African American woman, and working with him over the past week, and learning about Africa, and learning from his experiences, and him learning from my experiences here. It's been phenomenal. So he is a highly educated, artist, and so I don't want to say, man, we have highly educated men, but he sought his education even after being having success, and so that is commendable. He's a dedicated father and a husband, and and so I'm just really, really impressed, and the impact that he makes. The other thing that we kind of connected on is he also runs the president's entrepreneurial, kind of a motivation entrepreneurial program. The issue there is that they have about 100,000 graduates a year graduating from with bachelor's degrees, and only 10% of them are actually able to find employment. So many of them, highly educated, are really just lost. And so when I heard that, I said, wait a minute. So their bachelors are in what? Because I'm looking at workforce, an opportunity to connect. Right. So immediately I have had him probably a little bit more busy than he intended to be during this time, because we've been having meetings, because I see a connection with the U.S. How can we bridge this gap in workforce, in trade, and opportunity? I've been asking about the economy. So I will be taking a trip there next year with the Center for Economic Transparency, because it's also about understanding what are the economic opportunities across the globe, and how do we bridge this gap? How, if there aren't opportunities here in the U.S., are there some in Africa, and are there opportunities in the U.S. for Africans? So how do we make that happen?
She's done her homework, huh?
Yeah, she's smart.
Yeah, she is smart. She said you're smart too.
She's sharp. Thank you. She's sharp. She's about to cut me. Too sharp. TV.
And talk a little bit about. I mean, she set it up perfectly to talk about how you could have easily not gone this route, but talk a little bit about why you wanted to personally improve. Your education.
I promised my dad before he died that if he allowed me to go into music, that was when I was 15 years old, at least I'll get a first degree. So I got a first degree in linguistics in my local language. And 5 years later, I went into business. I went into advertising, music marketing, and talent management, and content strategy. And I realized that, no, I need to learn more, because you can only give what you have. You can't give what you don't have. So it got to a point, I said, okay, let me go back and do a master's in strategy. So I actually went to do a master's in strategy, so I could understand more, I could investigate, I could be able to learn about my surroundings and win. So basically, that was why I went. And then the other thing is that my personal philosophy in life is to touch people. So if I'm going to be able to touch people, I need to know what they want, where are their needs, how can we change, how can we improve, and to be heard in Ghana or in Africa, you need to have education. So if you want to do upscale marketing, you want to affect policy, you want to be able to be called upon to come into parliament or into the ministries to share your ideas, the people calling you must understand that you know what they know. So all that, it was very important for me to keep going to school. Plus, when everything is done, when I finally put my microphone down, I hope to be a teacher. So,
fathers know best. That's why he wanted you to do that. Absolutely. So talk a little bit about your music style. We haven't talked about that.
At all.
Yeah, what kind of?
So my music style is called hip life, which is a fusion of hip hop and high life. Now, high life music is the type of music that was developed in Ghana post-independence. And when the British people had left, they had taught the African how to transpose his indigenous rhythms onto electronic instruments like guitars and bass guitars and synthesizers. So they used those electronic instruments to play African music, and it created a sound that will drive through Africa, and Nigeria and Sierra Leone and all these places will pick it up. So, but why they called it high life was because it was music for the rich people. So the poor people looking at the rich people enjoying this electronic African sound say, oh, these people are leading a high life. You know, so it became high life music. And then coup d'etats and wars and all these things reduced the nightlife, and it affected high life. So 40 years later, hip hop music had become the gem, and everyone was catching the fever. You know, so we're listening to Big Daddy Kane, we're listening to LL Cool J, Shabba Ranks, you know, Lady Soul, you know. So when we were listening to them, we realized that what they were doing was very cool, and it was also something that was in our culture already. So we took the high life music and then we added it to hip hop, because we never want to lose ourselves, you know. So we're very proud people, Africans. So we added the hip hop music to high life music, and then we created hip life, which will become a movement for change, to become a movement to increase the pride and the self-worth of the young African.
So when I come visit, and if I tell people I know you, I'll get, people will be impressed, huh?
Yes, and it's also possible that you could get a few girlfriends.
All right. Well, on that note, what a pleasure to meet you.
Thank you.
You're doing great work,
Thank
and thank you for stopping in. It's important information. Great perspective.
Can I say something before I go?
He's giving me a rap, so.
Please, I would like to thank the mayor of Cincinnati.
Oh, that's right. He got a proclamation.
Exactly, for giving me the key. He says I can come around and drive around. So thank you very much. And then my plan is to lock the Cincinnati up and go to Africa.
All right. We'll be back in a moment. Well, that's all the time we have for today. My thanks again to Zola, Stewart, and he wanted to also thank Charlie Winburn for his help while he was here. That's all the time. Have a great day, everyone.
Thank you.